Last week, we asked you to start developing a quality policy and stressed the importance of top management's leadership role in the overall improvement process. This session is planning for improvement, and this is where so many organizations fail. Creating an entirely new management structure within your existing organization requires thinking strategically. It's almost like a world-class athlete who actually works at a normal job while training for their ultimate goal of winning the gold in the Olympics. One job has its description, function, role, while the other has vision, purpose, and inspiration. And both are essential to the success of the organization. And both require hard work. Jim?
This improvement process is something that's going to be difficult to attain. It isn't simple. It doesn't come easy. It's bringing about a very significant change in the way you think, the way you talk, the way you act, and the way you manage your business. What we've got to do is we've got to concentrate on preventing errors from occurring rather than reacting to them. We've got to focus on continuously improving rather than setting a target and feeling that we've made that target and everything is good from that point. We can relax and walk away from it. We've got to understand what the root cause of the problems are so we can prevent them from ever reoccurring rather than reacting to symptoms. We've got to go to a participative environment where our managers are actively participating and working closely with our employees rather than giving orders. We have to really start thinking more statistically. We got to have numbers, we got to have facts. When we make decisions, there's got to be decisions that's based upon real data instead of flying by the seat of the pants as we have in the past. We've got to cement a close customer-supplier relationship. We've got to make people feel that they've got to work together with the customers that are internal to the business rather than just think about, this is my job, I'm going to do my job and that's all that there is. We've got to focus on truly making our customers feel that they're part of our organization and they're going to benefit from the way we drive. Nothing good happens unless you plan for it. It won't happen by accident. If it would have happened by accident, you'd already have done it. And when you start to look at what's available in the whole improvement arena, there's over 150 different types of tools that need to be considered as part of the toolbox that we've talked to you about. And in that toolbox, you have to have things like quality function deployment, gain sharing, statistical process control, PAT, zero stock, poor quality costs. There's a whole group of these. And you've got to melt those together into some systematic plan that's going to lead you to your end vision, the goals that you want to do it.
Jim, you're kind of saying that if all we have is a few of these things that we're doing, statistical process control, we're really not into continuous improvement. If the plan is there, then we can see that we're actually doing something rather than a fad or a fix-it.
Well, what really has happened is just exactly that. Most companies have grabbed the tool and tried to use it and put it into place. They really didn't think about where they want to go. They didn't develop a strategy to get them there. They didn't treat it like a business. They treated it more like a toy that they were playing with. And I think that
in some cases, they grabbed the name.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what you really need to do is to develop a strategy, a long-range vision of how you want to change, how you would like to see your company change over the next 5 years. You have to develop that vision so you can think about it. Then you can develop a plan that will lead you to the vision. You know, if you don't know where you're going, any road's all right. And what's happened, we've went down too many dead ends. We went down the one-way roads in the wrong direction. And what you really need to do is first focus on a vision. And the way that happens is you really need to form an executive improvement team. These are the CEO, the top officers in an organization, and they should sit down together and develop a vision of how they would like to see the company 5 years from now. How would you like to see the change? What do you expect to happen over the next 5 years? And you've got to crisply define that as far as your management styles, your business processes, your customer interface, your supplier interface. There's many areas that you say, here's where I am today, and here's how I want to change. And that's the first step in starting to implement the improvement process, because you've got to understand where you want to go. And the executive improvement team is the only one that has all the information that's necessary to develop that vision of where we want to go. Certainly they have an obligation to communicate that vision to all the employees once it's been firmed up. And you need to get those people involved into it, all the employees in that vision. But that's where it starts. Then, once you have a vision, then you can assign another committee, and I'll call this an improvement steering committee, that can be the R&D group that looks at the 150 plus different tools that are available and decides which is the right tool to phase in and how it should be phased in, what the educational process is. And that's that area. They're really, truly an R&D group. And it's worthwhile investing in a little R&D effort, because this is going to probably be the biggest change you've ever made to your company.
Well, Jim, it sounds like, you know, with an executive committee and a steering council, we're actually creating an R&D group that's actually doing research into tools. We're almost treating the continuous improvement processes as important as creating a new product for the company.
Bill, this is probably more important, even more important than a new product, because this is going to control all the products in your future. This is your future that you're talking about. You're talking about changing the basic management system, the basic way you think, talk, and act. And not only just you, but everyone in the company is going to change. So what we need to do is to invest in ensuring that that change is going to be appropriate to meet your needs, your personality, the particular interest of your business and your customers. And that's the reason that you want to invest at this point in that steering committee that's going to do the work and provide a total plan.
And I think that's the critical thing right now, is for each team to really take some time and look at where they are and where they want to be 5 years from now. And in very concise ways, write a 5-year vision statement, a statement that says, 5 years from now, here's exactly what we're going to look like and what this place is going to be like. And then look at the evolutionary steps, phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you need to get through. Jim's going to give you 12 concepts to look at that will guide you in the process of creating an evolutionary plan to get there. So it's a vision statement of where you're going to be 5 years from now and a step-by-step plan to get there. I think you're going to find this critical to the entire improvement process. Well, how'd you do? Pretty tough, isn't it? It's not a simple task. What we're actually asking you to do in the last 20 minutes is really create a foundation document for the next 5 years, to look at yourself and say, where are we now? Where do we want the organization to be? And where do we need to be as management in support of that organization? But it'll give you a benchmark so that you can start actually tracking yourself over time. Take as much time as you need on this, because it's real critical to have a clear vision of where you're going. And what you've got is time. And time that's properly invested is going to pay maximum results for you. So time seems to be the critical thing here, Jim.
Time is the one ingredient in our business that you can't recapture. Once it's gone, you've lost it. Now, you've just developed a vision of where you want to be as far as leadership 5 years from now. What we need to do is have the executive team develop that complete set of vision statements and provide that to the improvement steering committee that is going to design a timeline plan that will bring you from where you are today to where you're going to go.
One of the exciting concepts to me is that this is a structured process. Up on top, we have the Quality Steering Council. Underneath, we have different work teams, different types of work teams doing their jobs, improving projects, solving problems, and so on. Generally improving our whole process. But they're all working under the direction of the Steering Council.
Steve, I think that QFD could be an extension of our present customer surveys. You know, we're trying to find out information about what the customer wants to see in a new generation product. And we've got the 4 different surveys that we put out, but QFD could be an extension of that to help us go out and effectively get more information from the customer.
We get feedback from sales and marketing, but oftentimes we are designing and really not knowing what the customer's requirements are. And I see QFD as honing in on
the
customer
different
requirements for
other special areas, such as QFD, are all related to the Steering Council. So what we have is a very structured process, not a casual process. And to me, that's very important for a company. Many of the suggestions in the past that have been written in different management books are just little bits and pieces. But this is an entire structure for improving a company.
That is going to design a timeline plan that will bring you from where you are today to where you're going to go.
When we first initially started cycle 1 of our company's quality process, we took over 1/3 of the company and put them into teams to work on the 5-year visions. We had to integrate that vision into, or those visions, into our strategic plan. What you're looking at on the board is 3 years of our strategic plan. And we've got it divided into 4 sections. The TQC process, new products and product performance, customer orientation, and then when we get all done and get everything installed, we want to come up with a new building for our company because we've been growing so rapidly. Actually, it's very hard to separate these because new products tie into the total quality process, ties into customer orientation. But if you take a look at the individual sections here, it's a lot easier for us to track from a strategic standpoint. We're showing where the cycle 2 and where cycle 3 have to come into play. We're talking about our new products and product performance. We know that our products have to perform very well in the industry, and that's how we compete. Not only do they have to perform well and do we have to continually work with them, but we also want to make sure that we come out with new products that the customers have a lot of input into. Recently we had a gentleman come in and talk about QFD. And it gave us an idea as to how we can get that customer information back in to turn right back around and design it into our new products. You'll see here where we talk about all the different types of items that we have to come out with through the course of the 3-year period. Customer orientation. We've done a number of things with the customers lately. We have a customer council coming up where we are bringing in various customers to get their input into our product, our services. We also have a customer visit program where we have taken different groups of people, different groups of employees, and send them out to visit various customers so they get a feel for exactly what the customer is looking for. We also have rep councils where we bring our representatives in and get ideas from them. We treat our representatives, as an example, as our customers rather than treat them as part of our workforce. Again, the last one, the new building. The building, of course, we know through our growth that we're going to have to come out with a new building. But what we want to do is we want to plan for that in advance. We don't want to go popping into a new building now. We feel that the total quality process is going to lead us into different ways to do things, and we want to plan this all into our building. You'll notice this line here. That line designates where we're at right now, and you notice that everything in front of that line is yellow and everything behind it is white. We review this chart every other week. It's kept in our president's office. We have our executive meetings in there, and we review it every other week. And we're responsible for keeping the items that are supposed to get done on time, done by the time this little line reaches them.
And that's what the Executive Improvement Committee is going to be involved in. They're going to be made up of representatives from each of the vice presidents within the organization, and they're going to design this plan. They're responsible for developing the company's improvement strategy. They will look at what measurements need to be made, how we're going to measure ourselves today, how we're going to measure ourselves in the future, and they'll develop those recommendations. They will implement the poor quality cost reporting system so you actually know what your waste is in actual dollars. They'll develop an awareness program that will be used throughout the whole organization to bring up the awareness level of the importance of improvement. They'll work with the educational facilities and determine how education should be phased in, because education is an essential part of the whole improvement process. They're going to analyze the whole tool set, that whole toolbox, and determine when and where those should be implemented.
It's kind of like that's the roadmap. It's a cross section. It's where all the information kind of feeds through and feeds back out, so that you don't have different parts of the organization doing a lot of different things that isn't totally coordinated.
That's right. Absolutely right. Each function will have a representative on the steering committee, and that representative will be responsible for helping the management implement the improvement process in their organization. And that's very important. This committee is not an implementation committee. We're going to implement all the activities down through the executive improvement team. It's truly an R&D group that's going out and coming up with a plan and recommending it to the management system on what they should do. It's their advisor group. It's their own internal consultants related to the improvement process.
So the steering committee doesn't implement. That's always the executive group.
Yes. What we want to do is we don't want to set up a whole new structure related to this improvement process. We want to integrate it into our management structure so it becomes part of the way we're doing business. That's the mistake many companies have made. What they do is they have this improvement activity that's separate, and then they have the management system that's separate, and then they never mesh together.
So it's got to stay the same.
You've got to use,
Virtually.
absolutely, you've got to use your organization, and that's a very key facet in the whole thing. And education is a very important part of that whole thing. Now, in addition to establishing the educational activities, this committee will also work as sort of an interface. It will find out what's happening outside in other companies, similar companies to yours. Feed that information back into the management team so they can continually react to it. They are truly the R&D research group that's going to be benchmarking where the company is going to go.
Another critical area that we're involved in here at Globe, of course, is quality planning. You can't really do all these things that we do unless you have some sort of a plan, some sort of an objective plan to follow. We developed our first quality plan back in 1986, so it really hasn't been that long ago. And we developed it, we admit readily, as a direct result of the influence of some of our customers. Our customers wanted to see our quality plan. Well, we really didn't have one to show them, so we had to develop one. And now that we have one, we really think it's a great idea. We have a 5-year quality plan, which the last version of it, which is being revised right now, the last version was 20 pages long and had 96 items for continuous improvement. Each one of those items very specifically supports the overall 5-year strategic plan of the company. In other words, we want to be the world leader in the production of ferroalloys. We want to be the most profitable, those kind of things. Each item in the quality plan supports something in the overall strategic plan for the company. And of course, being a leveraged buyout company, the banks make us nail down that strategic plan very tightly. And interestingly enough, they even want to see that quality plan these days, because quality is becoming such a big thing now. And of course, we want to show them things like that because we think that's one of our strongest suits, probably our strongest suit. The items in the quality plan are developed in a kind of multidisciplined environment where the QEC committee, through input of the customers and our own hourly employees and our own salaried employees as well, develop the items that we need to improve on.
We've got extra orders coming in, and our stress is on productivity. But as we know, we don't want productivity at the cost of quality. So I thought maybe each one of us could have some input as an inter-department group, each department looking from your area, the way we can improve to make sure we get the productivity, but at the same time, let's keep the quality up.
When we last met, we talked about this, and the probe sample comes back too small. When you mill it, you add iron to it, so you can't tell if we're having trouble with it, or, you know, it could be a lower iron than we got analysis for. But lately, you know, Tapper's been doing a real good job, and we've been getting, you know, the maximum size probe samples, and so it makes it easier. Our iron's been real good, consistent, and so, you know, that's the main thing, is if you don't bring a good probe sample, then you're going to double the effect. We're not going to.
So that's been an improvement over the last meeting we had,
Yeah.
that you had.
We're always assessing ourselves against what our customers are looking for. And we'll take a copy of the GM Targets for Excellence guidelines, for example, and sit down and say, okay, here's what we did here. How could we get better with this? Even if we got a perfect score on it, which, for example, we did in the management portion of Targets for Excellence, perfect score. How could you get better? It's easy. Just look at each item and say, how could we improve? And if you really put your mind to it, you can. And that's exactly how we develop that. As we develop this year's plan, we're not only taking into consideration what our customers have inputted us, but we're also taking into consideration the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award guidelines. There's 44 subsections in that application. And there's 192 little line items, there's little A, B, C, D's, and E's. And there's a way, I'm quite sure, to get better at each one of those 192 items. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. We want to position ourselves for the future. We're kind of at a summit here on a mountaintop, but our competitors are all trying to climb this same mountain that we're on, and we want to hit that next peak before they ever get to this one. And certainly in this competitive environment we're in, we assume that the day will come, they probably will get to where we are now, but we don't want to be there when they get there. We want to be way ahead. The maintenance of the plan itself, the day-to-day logistics of keeping up with everything that's in a 20-page document like that, with all these items, is can be rather difficult, can be kind of tedious to keep switching back and forth, flipping pages, trying to keep up. It's easy to lose track. So we developed in-house here a calendar arrangement, a simple little 2-year calendar that puts into kind of an operational aspect the most recent, or chronologically the next 2 years out of the 5-year plan. Now we put on the calendar, on the date that it comes up, the number of the item and the project itself that is due on that date and who's responsible for it. We try to put them, all the deadline dates, far enough down into a month that when the employee turns the page of his calendar, it's not already too late. In other words, oh, I was supposed to have that done on the 1st. We'd rather have it on the 31st than the 1st. And it's been very effective in helping us keep up with what we're trying to do to improve.
Companies like Hewlett Packard, Texaco, Kulinar have all used this very effectively. And in fact, let me show you Kulinar's plan. Here's their vision statements, and you can see that they've looked at a number of different vision statements.
From customer focus, external partnerships. Here's management support, which says all managers will provide groups and individuals with conditions that will allow them to achieve continuous improvement and self-achievement. It sounds like it's the weekly team meetings what managers are about is making sure the opportunity is there at all times for every work group.
Very much focused on empowering their people to move forward and to make their own decisions. And you can see how each and every word of these are meaningful.
Right.
And you build upon the individual words because they become a meaningful part of your whole business plan. Here, then, is where they went off-site and developed a 3-year master plan that takes you month by month over a 3-year period and how all of these 200 tools are going to be implemented into their business, and who's going to be educated, how it's going to be implemented, and when it's going to be implemented.
So this gives them a way to look and focus and see how far along they are. They're not doing things piecemeal. They're doing them with a continuous flow plan.
Yes, you've got a strategy that's not a today's strategy. It's a long-term strategy. They followed that up with another part, which is a 90-day plan, and says what's going to happen day by day over the next 90 days. And this is what's used to measure progress. And the Executive Steering Committee and the Executive Council track this very closely to be sure all commitments are met. This way we stay on track. Culinar, for example, updates the 90-day plan every 30 days. So they always have a 90-day plan that's the next 90 days. They just add 30 days on at the end of every month.
This is as thorough as companies have for their entire strategic success factors in their organization. It sounds like there's two separate plans now.
Easily they could be two very separate activities. But the important thing is you really have to tie it in with the company's critical success factors. Quality doesn't happen. It requires a good plan. But it has to be meshed in with the whole corporate plan. And what I want to do is really show you how, if you look at a complete planning cycle, how we can tie that all in together. Because there's no need, and it does no good to have a short-range plan if you don't have a long-range plan so you know where you're going. You're just not walking in the right direction. Even if you meet your objectives, you may be going in the wrong direction. So if you look at this planning pyramid, what you'll see here is a complete strategy for planning. And at the very top of the planning pyramid, what you have is a mission. The mission is the basic purpose, why the company was formed. It's why people gave you money to get your company started. That's usually generated by the CEO, the president of the company. And it changes very seldom. Your mission should be very constant. It comes down from the top. Step down one lower level, and you're looking at operating principles. These are your basic beliefs, your concepts. It's the reason that people come to work for you than for your competitors. That's the reason that they come. It's respect for the individual. It's a belief that each individual is worth something. It's respect for your customer. It's that type of basic fiber in the company. If you go down to the next level, below that, what you will find is you will find business objectives. Now, business objectives is what you're trying to accomplish in your business over the next 5 or 10 years. Some of the Japanese companies that I know have business objectives that are pointed at 200 years out. But I'm not really saying you need business objectives that are that far out. I think you need business objectives that are at least 10 years out. Where do you want to move your company in the next 10 years? Once you've got business objectives of where you want to move, then you can start talking about performance goals. Performance goals says, if I'm going to accomplish this in the business, how am I going to measure where I'm going? Performance goals always have a time and a quantity measure. I'm going to accomplish something at a specific period of time,
Right.
at a specific level. I'm going to be so good in a period of time. So that's performance measures. Now, what you've seen from the top coming down is you've seen mission, operating principles, and business objectives. That's all coming down from the top. Now we're beginning to build and involve the middle management in our planning cycle. They're going to provide you with the performance goals to meet your business objectives. Next strategy underneath that is, what is the strategy I'm going to use to meet those performance goals? And again, here, you go down another level of management. You involve middle managers and the first level managers and say, how are we going to do it? And you end up with the tactics. The tactics are the bottom level. It's the first line manager and the employees saying, here's how we're going to implement the strategies. And so what you're doing is like biting into a sandwich. You're coming down with your planning cycle from the bottom, and you're coming up from the top to the bottom, and from the bottom to the top, just like biting into a sandwich. And everybody has to be involved in that whole planning cycle. Now what we've did is taken one chunk out of that planning cycle. We've taken the business objectives and taken that chunk from quality and expanded on down through to develop a quality plan. And that plan has to be integrated into the whole picture of where we're going. Because if you're developing a high quality product for the low-end market, it's the wrong perspective. So it has to be an integrated plan. I think that's an important factor that we have to be sure occurs.
It's got to really tie in with what you call the success strategies of the company, the key variables that produce the profit and the cash to keep the business alive.
Absolutely. And once you've did that, now what you need to do is to tie this all together into your annual operating plan. Because you need to develop something that's going to move you along on a continuous timeline base again. But the thing that's happened in the past, the quality annual plan was developed by quality assurance. Absolutely the wrong people. It's the wrong people to develop the plan. They don't have the power to implement any of it. They don't do it. They measure. And what you need to do is get the person to say he's going to do something who's responsible for it and going to be measured for it. So what we need to do when we prepare our annual strategic plan, every function, finance, development engineering, personnel, each one should develop their quality plan and input it into the annual strategic operating plan. And their budget should be based upon what they're going to do with that money and what they're going to accomplish with the money. It should be a good business decision. This whole quality issue is a business matter, and it makes good business to have everybody part of the planning cycle. Now, what is quality assurance role then? Well, quality assurance role is really to prepare and pull this whole thing together, very similar to what production control would as far as production schedules. They don't make any parts, but they pull together the whole schedule, and that's what quality should do. They should be the catalyst that pulls it together. What we've tried to do here is align accountability with responsibility, and we continuously have separated those two, and we need to bring them together so the people that are responsible for implementing it also have the accountability for implementing it. When we do that, we're going to make real strides in the quality movement.
This isn't something you take and delegate over to your training department. In other words, this is the function of the executive group, making certain that all of these things occur and happen in a very integrated way.
And that's the plan that we need to develop. And when you got this plan developed and a strategy laid out, now we can march forward and actually go into implementation and make some real strides that are going to be meaningful and very timely. We'll have both the time and the results as a result of the planning that we've done. Now what I'd like you to do as a team before the next session is to complete an exercise for me entitled Typical Improvement Tools. Now what I did is provide you with a list of 11 typical improvement tools. I'd like you to look up a definition for each of these and evaluate their application in your particular environment.
In other words, what you want everybody to do is say, here they are, how does it fit, and give me feedback as to what kind of results this would produce before next week.
Yes. And the group should come together as a group and meet and prepare a complete list and come to an agreement on which tools should be used and their sequence.
Okay. Well, with the commitment of top management, and now with the well-thought-out plan, you can begin to move ahead with confidence that both the time to implement your plan and the results generated by that activity can support continuous improvement. At our next team meeting, Jim's going to show us how to go beyond that commitment and actually get them actively involved in the process.